All on the behalf of Center for Critical Peace Studies and Department of Critical Science and International Relations to an international guest lecture based on historical methods in critical social science. As many of you know, that critical social sciences challenges the mainstream ideas and assumptions about society, power, and inequality. And the best tool to conduct this method is historical analysis. So that today we will be exploring the historians who used critical approaches to examine the past and how these methods can be applied into contemporary social issues. For this lecture, we are thrilled to have Dr. Kristin Plys. She is an associate professor of sociology and history at University of Toronto. Her expertise in political economy, dictatorship in the 1970s Global South, poetry, visual art, and politics in the 1970s Global South, labor history, histories of cafe culture, and historical method. She is the author of Brain Resistance 2020, winner of the Global Sociology Book Award from the Federation of Humanities and Social Sciences. Over to you, Kristin.
Thank you so much to everyone for inviting me, especially Dr. Fatima and Ms. Tareem and the Center for Critical Peace Studies more broadly. And thank you to all of you who came here today. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with all of you and very much looking forward to your questions after the talk. So I'd like to just start by talking about the goal of historical research. The goal of historical research is to tell a story that's never been told before. If you're finding the fragments of a story and you're putting them together, parts of this story may be known to you, or they may have been partially told by others, but you're telling this story in a new way when you're undertaking historical research. And there may be new additions that you find to an existing story, or perhaps what's new about your story is simply in how you tell it. For example, a film that remakes an older film is a valuable artistic contribution that can retell an older story for a new place and a new time. And many stories warrant multiple retellings. But mostly, as a historical researcher, you're finding information that's been lost to time and narrating it by weaving it into a story. So much of what has occurred in the time before us has been lost to us in the present. A historian tracks down those stories that we've nearly lost or are at risk of losing. And we do this because these nearly lost stories can be extremely consequential for us in the present. The way we make sense of what's happening now is only because there's a past leading up to it. For example, if you're a regular viewer of a certain show that has two characters that are maybe in like a will they, won't they situation, a scene where the two characters encounter each other by chance on the street maybe, and have a quick conversation, may be laden with meaning for you, the viewer, because you know about the history of these characters. And your friend, perhaps, who doesn't watch that show or is watching that episode with you, might be perplexed as to why you're so invested in such an everyday interaction. But that's because your friend maybe doesn't know the history of these two characters. And the same holds for when it comes to making meaning of contemporary political economy. We have a shared sense of past events that are leading up to this moment in world history. And how we interpret what's happening now, whether it's the war in Gaza or something closer to home like the Imran Khan protests, is because we have these multiple collective narratives explaining what has led up to these events. And so our only our experience though in the present is real. The past is no longer, the future is not yet, and so therefore we only ever exist in this present moment. When you wake up in the morning and maybe you check your phone to see what time it is, the time is now. And if you go back to sleep and you wake up a few hours later, the time is still now. If you make an appointment with someone for later next week, when that appointment takes place, the time is now. So you're always existing in the time of now. The clock goes around and around for those of us who still deal with analog clocks, but the only time it ever is now. So, but while we know this is true, all we have is now, it's not how we socially experience the passage of time. Most of us spend a good deal of time either thinking about the past or thinking about the future, and maybe if you're especially neurotic, you might think about both. And though we're beings who exist through time, we only ever have this present moment. We're also constantly experiencing time as never-ending change. Time is variable, elastic, infinite, and social, but the self remains constant as the clock goes around and around. And through this passage of time, we intuit our existence, or to say it more plainly, we make sense of our lives because we have these memories of what led up to the moment now. And whether we levy this to get caught up in the romantic tension of two characters in a drama, or to grapple with the ongoing legacies of imperialism in Gaza, it's how we think about the past that determines how we experience our present. But how we tell the stories of our past can not only change how we make sense of what's happening in the present, but can, through changing how we see the present, also change the future. So let's say, for example, you're the leader of a trade union movement of workers who are on strike for higher wages in order to keep pace with inflation. At a march, one of the rank and file members of your union is killed by police.